Hi everyone, my name is Russian Adam. Welcome to my wonderful new lab. And I got asked often how to become a perfumer, how to learn blending, how to dilute some of the raw materials, how to do all this mind-blowing complex art. And I do not think that I am in a good position. I don't think I am a master perfumer or anything like that. And I want to tell you first of all that there is no right or wrong. And I just want to share some of my experience. Maybe it will be beneficial for some of you. Maybe some of you will find something interesting. And yeah, let's see how it goes. So first of all, I think the most important ingredient in anything you do is your sincerity, is your love for this particular craft. So if you truly love what you are doing, I think you will achieve success eventually. Then I personally believe that true learning starts from practice and experiment. So you can watch hundreds and thousands of videos, you can read many books, but the actual count, the time when you start learning, starts when you start practicing. That's what I personally believe. That's why I started distilling my own oud oils and then started practicing the blending. So where to start? You know, in the perfume school, often they will tell you, from what I heard, is that this art, this craft is like a new language. If you want to learn a new language, you have to learn the alphabet. You have to learn the letters first. So you have to study the raw materials. You have to study the ingredients first. And I partly agree with that. Obviously, you have to train your nose first. This is essential. This is very important. So you have to stick with authentic sources for buying tiny samples of raw materials. You want to test, your floral oils. You want to test your rose auto, your jasmine absolute. You want to test, all this wonderful amazing base notes like resins, your labdanum, benzoin, vanilla absolute versus vanillin, tonka versus coumarin. Obviously there are natural materials like vanilla absolute, for instance, and there are synthetic alternatives, vanillin, which is synthetically derived or naturally derived isolate from different sources. So you have to really study, smell them, know them, and memorize them, and just select those that speak to you the most. That's what I personally do. First of all, I constantly searching for new materials, constantly buying samples from different suppliers, testing them in the lab for the purity, buying it here, buying it there, testing out different oils all the time. This brings me pleasure, and this helps me to find my future paints. It helps me to find the materials that I truly fall in love with. So for me personally, the main condition is that I have to love the raw material first. Only then I can consider how much it costs, where can I use it, how can I use it, what can I do with it. So first of all, you have to train your nose. You have to study different raw materials. Again, I will repeat, stick to the sources that provide small tiny samples of authentic raw materials from different big supplier companies, for instance, like Robert Ed, IFF, Givaudan, all these huge multi-billion companies that you cannot really often go directly and get the samples from or buy tiny samples from, but you can use some of the resellers who offer their products in a tiny size of samples, like 1 ml, 2 ml, 3 ml, and buy as many as you can, and just spend several months or even years simply smelling them, simply enjoying them, wearing them on their own, and studying how they behave and the ones that speak to you the most. Now I would love to say something that is extremely important. I think at the beginning of your journey, you as a perfumer must not or should not stick to extremely high quality ingredients. Before you study the whole bunch of oils, like what is the difference between blood orange, bitter orange, sweet orange, mandarin, the lime, lemon, before you know all this, you shouldn't go and buy white ambergris and make a tincture. You shouldn't buy deer musk. You shouldn't buy very expensive wood oils, because just now I realized that often extremely high quality raw materials can deceive you. They can make you think that you are extremely good at blending, because some of these raw materials on their own smell absolutely amazing. If you are a lover of wood oils, if you are a lover of strong animalic notes like deer musk, civet, ambergris, you might take some of these extremely high quality raw materials, blend them in a way that is not really harmonious, but you will fall in love. Why? Because you love the smell of this raw materials. So you will be like, wow, I'm already a very, very skillful, because I created something that smells nice, that smells quite amazing. But the fact is that this amazing smell is not really because of your skill or amazing blending, but because of this amazing smell of this raw material itself. So it's it's just like, I don't know, cooking Wagyu steak. And I made this example in one of the videos we done with my fellow fragrance lover Ramsey. At his channel we done 2 wonderful interviews that I encourage every ingredient lover or someone who want to become a perfumer to watch. So we done 2 wonderful interviews about the ways of distilling, the ways how I make perfumes, and a second video on ingredients. It's a very long 4-hour interview, but I truly encourage you to watch it, and you will discover many interesting things if you truly love to know ingredients a bit more. So it's a bit like cooking. If you want to learn how to cook, I would not suggest you go ahead and buy, I don't know, $100, $200, $300 Wagyu steak at the beginning of your journey. It might deceive you. You might get this steak that is Wagyu, amazing quality beef. You might cook it not really well, but then it will still taste wonderful. Why? Because it is Wagyu. It is Wagyu steak. It will still melt in your mouth. Even if you slightly undercook or overcook it, it will still taste like butter. And you might be deceived. You might start thinking, wow, I'm an amazing cook. See how I cook this steak. It's just melt in your butter. And it melts in your mouth. But the reason is that because it is Wagyu, it is extremely high quality meat. It's not because your skill of cooking. I would suggest you to start with inferior grade of raw materials while you practicing blending. And then once you achieve some success using regular quality or lower quality raw materials, you can then upgrade yourself to add some natural ambergris, to add some musk, to add some amazing wood oils. But I would not recommend you to start from the most amazing quality raw materials. It might really deceive you. Next thing, sourcing raw materials is very, very tricky. Just as I mentioned in previous video, for me to buy a wood oil, it's like a very serious topic and a very serious process. When I select the producer, when I select the samples, I select the samples from a set of samples, select the ones I like, then I make sure that he has a batch of this oil, how big is it, how small it is. I test this very oil from this very batch that I'm going to buy. Only if I get a positive GCMS lab test result for the purity and quality, only then I buy this very oil. So obviously at your beginning you will not be able to do this, and you would just want to stick with the regular raw materials, with the regular suppliers who resell oils from the big companies. So I will just link few in the description down below that you can check, just a basic, you know, Google search, or going to some of the natural perfume making groups or regular perfume making groups will help you, where people can guide you and tell you like, okay, this shop, yes, is a reputable shop, they is selling ingredients from Robertet or from, you know, IFF or from Givaudan and so on. That's where you should go and buy some of the samples that you can study and learn. Next step is the actual blending. I think it will come naturally when you will be smelling different raw materials. You will notice that many of them want to come together. Many of them want to become one almost. So it's like, I don't know, oud and rose. Even though those two are so different, you kind of want to put them together to experience this amazing contrast, this harmonious, amazing contrast. Not to say that it's so easy to blend oud and rose and make it harmonious. It is difficult and it will take time. But how actually you're gonna start blending? First of all, again, very simple basic rule is that you need to understand in your mind the strength of different oils. For instance, sandalwood versus some of the floral oils. Most of the floral oils, floral autos, absolutes, CO2, extremely potent, extremely powerful, but not as long lasting. Whereas something like sandalwood is much less powerful, but is extremely long lasting. Therefore, you can have an idea that if you, for instance, blend sandalwood and rose in equal proportions, you might not get a perfect balance. Obviously, it's totally up to you how you do it and what type of balance you want to achieve. But if you want to have your harmonious, let's say, sandal rose perfume, you have to take your sandalwood oil and blend it with the rose. As the rose is much more potent, meaning you will have to use much less rose than your sandalwood, because otherwise the rose will overpower sandalwood and you will not be able to smell sandalwood at all. So how to perform actual blending? Now we come to blending and diluting your raw materials. So people wondering, they're asking, how can you dilute your raw materials, what you can do to make sure you get the most out of it. I would say it totally depends on the way you work, on the way you blend. Some perfumers prefer to work with the pure raw materials, meaning you have to spend much more oils, and if something goes wrong, you basically will be wasting much more oils. I prefer to work by drops. By drops, meaning each single material I use, I only use 1 or 2 or maximum 3 or 4 drops. It helps me to save a lot of raw materials, but obviously there are some variables that need to be discussed. Every material is different in weight. For instance, your bergamot oil is much lighter than your benzoin or labdanum, and if you compare weight to drops, obviously drops not going to be accurate, because if you put 1 drop of benzoin with 1 drop of bergamot, it's not a 50-50 mixture. Whereas if you do it by weight and you put 1 gram of benzoin and 1 gram of bergamot, you get your 100% clear and accurate measure and equal combination. Meaning by weight is more accurate. By drop is easier, more convenient, more economical, but it is less accurate. However, if you study your drops, you can make it pretty accurate. Meaning you have to know the weight of your drop of benzoin oil you're using and the weight of your bergamot. Each single drop, the way you put it, the way it is, because the drop can be big, the drop can be small, the drop can be like half of a drop, third of a drop, and so on. So you need to know the weight of each single drop if you decide to blend by drops. Then we're talking about resins, we're talking about diluting raw materials. Something like benzoin often comes in a very, very hard, almost solid form. So how you could blend benzoin, how you could measure it by drop or even by grams, even when it's so hard and so solid? Obviously, first of all, you have to warm it up. You have to make sure it is runny, whether heating it gently in a water bath or on electric, small tiny electric heater with a controlled temperature, so it's not too hot but it's already becoming runny. And then you dilute your oil. For dilution, again, many choices, many options. Many perfumers use many different things. Many perfumers prefer to use ethanol. You dilute your materials in your pure ethanol or perfumer's alcohol. In this case, again, there are many benefits for this method. There are many disadvantages. I personally do not use ethanol for diluting my raw materials. I personally prefer carrier oils instead. It can be your synthetic carrier oil like DPG, or you can use some of the natural oils like refined fractionated coconut oil or something like that. You take your benzoin, you warm it up, you pour it into a container, measure it by weight and dilute it by weight. For instance, you make it 50-50 with your solvent, and then you have your 50% dilution of benzoin. It can become runny. If it's not yet becoming very runny, you can make it, I don't know, 25%, 20%, until you are comfortable. And then you can measure it by drops again, making sure you know the weight of your drop, so that once you record your formula, you're 100% aware and you know that this is 1 drop of benzoin, weight, let's say 0.03 grams. 1 drop of bergamot, weight is 0.02 grams, and so on. In general, more intense the aroma of the material, more dilution you want to make. For instance, something extremely powerful and strong like cinnamon oil, you want to make it at a very, very, very strong dilution, so that you can use it in a single drop, combining it with a single drop of sandalwood, for instance, and it will not ruin the aroma. Meaning, if you combine pure sandalwood oil 1 drop with the pure cinnamon oil 1 drop, the experiment would be ruined, because the cinnamon oil will completely overpower sandalwood. You would have to add something like, I don't know, 50 drops of sandalwood oil and 1 drop of pure cinnamon oil, or even 100 drops of pure sandalwood oil versus 1 drop of cinnamon oil. Only then cinnamon will be kind of harmonious, cinnamon note will be harmonious and not overpowering the sandalwood. Instead, not to waste 50 or 100 drops of sandalwood, you can dilute your cinnamon, meaning you're still using 1 drop, only 1 drop of sandalwood, and you put 1 drop of your diluted cinnamon, 1 to 50 or 1 to 100, meaning you dilute your cinnamon oil up to 1% concentration with your carrier oil that has no noticeable aroma, or with your ethanol. Some of the benefits of diluting with ethanol, I mean, it's very convenient, it's very runny, and your final perfume will reside in ethanol as well, will be diluted with perfumer's alcohol. So diluting your raw materials in perfumer's alcohol immediately can give you this feeling of a complete perfume. One of the disadvantages is that ethanol evaporates extremely fast, and if your vials are not sealed good enough, your dilutions will be slowly decreasing and their strength will be increasing, and you will be unsure and unaware of the actual concentration. For instance, you diluted your raw materials with ethanol, you left for traveling, you came back after 1 or 2 weeks, and then you see some of them drop, some of the level dropped, materials becoming more concentrated, and now you don't really know what is the concentration in your bottle, because you cannot really calculate accurately how many alcohol has evaporated, because some of the bottles seal nicely, some of the other bottles seal not as tight, and even within one type of bottles, different bottles seal differently. So it's quite tough to know the true concentration after some time. After 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, it will be extremely difficult. For instance, you can see some of this Immortelle Absolute. It's been diluted in perfumer's alcohol at 10% maybe 1 or 2 months ago. Now it's completely back to its normal absolute state, almost pure absolute state, because all the perfumer's alcohol has evaporated. I done it because I had to, and I was curious and I had to check something, so I done this. But normally I do prefer to use carrier oils, your synthetic oils or your natural carrier oils. Those will not evaporate over time, and those give you a different sensation, a slightly different aroma. Once ingredient is mixed with the carrier oil, it gives a different smell comparing to the ethanol mixed with your ingredient. And you really have to see and experiment and try and really find out for yourself what is the best way for you. And even with the carrier oils, you know, if you store them for too long, like 2, 3, 4, 5 months, the smell start to drop, because often carrier oils, they are not, you know, perfect carrier for all the ingredients. You know, like you are mixing rose with your virgin fractionated coconut oil, for instance, it smells amazingly intense at first, and then after 1 month it's becoming weaker, after 2, 3, 5 months it's becoming weaker, and after, I don't know, 6, 7 months or a year, it can become extremely weak. Again, it will not give you 100% accuracy in terms of the concentration. That's why after you've done your experiments by drops with your pure and diluted materials based on their strength, so the weaker is material, more pure form you're using, for instance like sandalwood, and more intense is the material, a weaker concentration you use, the more dilute material you're using in your blend. So after you've done your experiment with drops and you're happy with the results, you immediately should perform experiment number 2, second batch experiment using weight, measuring your materials by weight in their pure form or in their diluted form, and recording your formula by weight as well. Also important to note that I would recommend people to start with very simple combinations. Stick with very simple materials, with the very simple formulas, with the very few ingredients. As the time goes by, you can slowly add the ingredients, because obviously adding is more efficient, is easier than reducing. Often composition can smell too crowded, ingredients can clash with each other, and a formula can smell extremely dense. So perfume need space to breathe, and ingredients need space to breathe. It is relevant to the concentration of a composition as well as the number of ingredients. And obviously if you're just starting out, it will be very hard to find a perfect harmony, a perfect balance. I would highly recommend you to start with ingredients that are natural and then experience their synthetic alternative. For instance, it's very important to smell and know and understand natural rose oil, natural rose absolute before you go to synthetic alternatives. Then you can really compare them, then you can really see the difference, then you can really feel and gravitate towards one or another option. Again, vanilla absolute versus vanillin, tonka bean versus coumarin. It is extremely important, I think, to stick with the natural first, to understand the true essence, the true natural aroma of natural extract, and then smell its synthetic version, so that you can get a very clear idea and understanding how they differ and what purpose they can serve within a composition. That means that first of all, you would love to purchase natural ingredients, study as many as possible of natural oils, citruses, your spices, your floral oils, and your base notes, your heavy resins, tobacco, patchouli, sandalwood, oud, and all that good stuff. Finally, I would love to give you a few tips once you starting your blending, once you have your formulas ready, recorded. Obviously, the most important thing is to record every single formula, or to have a technique how you can memorize the formula. I might share some of my techniques in the future videos, but it is important to record every single formula you make, so that you know what is going on, because often we combine ingredients, we play around, and then suddenly we feel that we really like the accord that we created, or even a complete formula, but then something can distract us and we can forget to write it down, and it's becoming a big problem then when ingredients all mixed up on the table, and then you don't know what you really done, but it smells so amazing. So it's extremely important to record your formulas. I would highly suggest, do not rush with the judgments. Often we create a formula and we love it. We absolutely love it. We feel like, wow, we created another masterpiece. Actually, it happens quite often, almost every day when I experiment. I put together a formula, I put together some of the ingredients, and I feel that, wow, this is extremely amazing. Only to come back to it next day and realize that this is really miserable. It smells very dull, or it's something I've done before many times, or something like that. So do not make quick decisions. On the other hand, if we create something that is not extremely pleasant at the beginning, might evolve and might change. A great example of that is War and Peace formula that I created, and I didn't like it at first, and I put it somewhere on the table, and then I was coming back to it day after day after day, until I realized, obviously, ingredients macerated, they blended, they merged together well, and I also realized, and my nose adjusted to it, and I was like, wow. After 1 or 2 or 3 months of smelling it, I was like, wow, I have to release this formula. It is truly amazing. So take your time. Never make quick decisions, never make quick judgments. If you like something from the beginning, leave it for 1 day, 1 week, 1 month, and see if you're gonna like it after 1 month as much as you like it at the beginning. Probably it is an amazing formula. It's worth to be released. If you do not like it, do not throw it away. So it is always an amazing journey, full of surprises, full of ups and downs. So I truly encourage anyone who is interested to learn the ingredients, to learn this craft, and to experiment. Obviously, it never stops me from wearing perfumes, from buying perfumes, and hopefully in the future video I will discuss some of the perfumes that I love from French houses, Middle Eastern houses, because I also ask about it quite a lot. Thank you so much, and See you in another video. Bye.